Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a deep plunge into a really fascinating piece of writing. It's a daily reflection guide called Remembering God's Wonders, and we're zeroing in on the entry for June 19th, 2025. It offers, I think, a powerful way to look at uncertain times. Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. Our mission today is really to explore how remembering past events, those significant moments, how that act itself, as this source describes it, can be a real source of hope.
Yep.
Hope and trust, especially when things feel uncertain right now.
hmm And what's really interesting here is how the guide structures it. It's not just a vague idea. It lays out like a 7-step approach for personal reflection. And it's all centered around a specific scripture passage. So what we'll do in this deep dive is distill those key insights, specifically on memory and its power, as the guide presents it, really digging into how it suggests we use memory for, well, present strength.
Right, that structure is key. And the central theme coming out of this source is, well, it sounds simple. It's that when life feels uncertain, maybe one of the most powerful things you can do is just remember.
Exactly. But simple doesn't mean easy, right? The guide takes us straight into Psalm 77, specifically verses 10 through 20. And what's critical to grasp is the journey the psalmist goes on, as the source points out. He starts by, pouring out pain, real distress, very relatable stuff. But then there's this very deliberate, intentional shift.
A choice.
Yes, a choice. The psalmist chooses to remember God's past faithfulness, his wonders, his power, his rescue. And connecting this to the bigger picture, the guide emphasizes that this isn't just like drifting into pleasant memories. It's an active, intentional act. It's described as foundational for finding hope again, almost like a strategy.
That active choice, that deliberateness, that really stands out. The source highlights Psalm 77, verse 11. I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your wonders of old. It makes you wonder, though, when you're actually in that distress, how does the guide suggest you make that active choice? What are the first steps?
Yeah, that's a great question because it's not always intuitive. The reflection section of the guide really gets into this. It talks about recalling how, in the guide's words, God has shown up before, how he's rescued or provided or led, even if maybe you didn't fully see it that way at the time.
Like looking back with new eyes.
Exactly. And the psalmist gives this incredibly powerful example, looking back at the Red Sea miracle. That's in verses 16 to 20 of the psalm. He uses that memory to find strength right then. And the psalm itself, wow, it paints such a vivid picture. Things like, when the waters saw you, O God, they were afraid. Indeed, the deep trembled. And the clouds poured out water. The skies gave forth thunder. Your lightnings lighted up the world.
It's very dramatic, almost cinematic, like you said.
Right. It captures this huge, overwhelming power. But then there's this other line the guide points out. Your way was through the sea, yet your footprints were unseen. So it's this mix of massive divine power, but also this mysterious, unseen guidance. And it ramps up with, you led your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. That combination is pretty potent, isn't it? Power and unseen care.
Absolutely. It really resonates if you're facing something that feels impossible. And then the reflection guide, it takes that historical memory, the Exodus, and broadens it out. That feels important. It points beyond that specific event to what it calls the ultimate rescue at the cross involving Jesus. So the guide sort of expands the whole scope of what remembering can involve. It builds a bigger foundation for hope.
Yes, exactly. It moves from a specific historical example to a more central belief. And from that wider view, the reflection section then boils it down to 3 core takeaways. First, God's past faithfulness is presented as, well, fuel for trusting him right now.
Yeah.
It suggests a pattern. Second, the idea is when you can't see the path forward, look back. Look at what he's already done.
Like using history as a compass.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. A strategic redirection when you feel overwhelmed. And third, Jesus is presented as the ultimate proof that God saves, and also that he's not finished with your story yet. It offers this sense of ongoing purpose. So pulling those together, this raises an important question. How did this whole framework of looking back actually help us navigate the challenges we're facing today?
That's the perfect place to bring it back to you, the listener. Because the source isn't just theoretical, it's meant to prompt personal reflection. So maybe take that moment to think. What are some times when, what this guide describes as God showing up in your own life? What comes to mind? Any specific moments? And then how could remembering those past acts of faithfulness, like the source suggests, actually help you build trust in your present situation? What would that look like for you? And finally, what might it mean for you personally to find rest in what the source calls the finished work of Christ? That idea that the ultimate rescue is done, providing a secure base. So what's the bottom line here? What does this all mean? I think this deep dive into remembering God's wonders really highlights the profound power in something that sounds simple. Remembering, it's not just nostalgia, is it? It's framed as this strategic, intentional act. The guy suggests it offers a unique way to navigate uncertainty by grounding us in what's already happened, what's already been done.
Right. And that leads perfectly to maybe a final thought for you to mull over, drawing from the guide's own closing prayer prompt. Consider what it might mean for you, personally, to cultivate a heart that remembers well. I mean, think about how reflecting on what has already been done, those big historical wonders the guide mentions, or maybe your own smaller personal ones, how could that focus actually shape your perspective now? And how might it lead to a faith that grows stronger, ready for whatever comes next? Something to think about.